It's nice to see Bitcoin back in the green. Can we expect this pump to last, or will my theory that I've had all this time about, some relief rally pumps be proven true? Let's take a look at Bitcoin and find out whether this pump is going to be a sustained Trump pump into the rest of the year. Bull market, is just going to go take off, or if this is just a temporary relief bounce that may sell off sooner than we expect. So this is crypto simulation theory. I'm the Gaussian snake. None of this is financial advice. Let's go ahead and get started. So if we take a look at Bitcoin on the daily time frame, we are seeing that it did complete its red Gaussian channel. This is very likely to flip green soon. The last time we came out of a red Gaussian channel was all the way back in October of 2024. It was actually September where it ended. The pump started in September and really took off in October. And then we reached a crest in December. We had this, roughly 2-month long green Gaussian channel, and then we went red again. And now it looks like we're going to be heading green. So that's usually a pretty good sign, although this is on a daily time frame. So we have to keep that in mind. The Gaussian channel on a daily time frame is not a great predictor. You can have moments where things turn green, like they did here, or even here, and not necessarily last that long. Of course, we can have times where things go absolutely insane. So we need to look at a lot more data than what we have here. I do value the higher time frame a lot more than the lower time frame in my analysis, as you probably know if you've been following me for any length of time. But I do want to at least take a look at a few things that we've spoken about in the past and kind of tie them together. I have a video on this death cross right around the time that it happened, and even before it happened, of the 100-week and 200-week whole moving averages. And I said that, and I even did a whole video on it. You can check out the video I did, that the average time to come out of this death cross and like start challenging these moving averages is around anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to around 3 and possibly even 4 months. That's on the longer end. The average time seemed to be about a month. Well, a month went by and we didn't achieve anything except just a double top. And then things just kind of went down from there. And most recently, we are finding ourselves in a pretty good situation. All the moving averages are turning up, and we're actually on the verge of a golden cross of the 100 with the 200. So this is good to see. We're riding the 20 week right now. Everything's nice and green. So again, on the daily time frame, things do look good. I mean, the last time we had a golden cross was in September of 2024, and that led to about 2 months of really good price action, right? Because it technically started like around October 1st. So we'll say like 2 to 3 months of good price action. So it is a significant event. I mean, the last death cross we had was in April, right? So we could see some pretty explosive price action, and it is possible Bitcoin takes out its previous all-time high. And I would be a fool to say that that couldn't happen. Of course it can happen. The question is, will it? So there's no way to really know that, but we can at least kind of look at what the odds are and go from there. So right now, the daily oscillator wave trend is back in the red zone for the first time since October of 2024. And that trip in the red zone lasted for about 3 months. Compare this to previous times. You can see these trips in the red zone can last for, several months. So it is possible we're about to enter into a multiple month journey inside the red zone, meaning we could have a green, not only a green April, but also a green May as well. And that could be the case for sure. And like, if you think about it, the first rate cuts aren't being priced in until June. And usually markets don't really take to rate cuts too well. So more on that later, though. Let's just focus on the thing at hand. So the wave trend right now is getting into the hot zone. Just something to watch out for. It doesn't mean we're going to take a trip back down right away or anything like that. It just means, okay, we're now in that area where you expect to see some strength, but you could also see some, bearish divergences form. They don't necessarily mean anything right away, but we've at least got out of the green zone that we were in March. So that's nice to see that we're back at the top. The average sentiment oscillator on the daily time frame is the widest it's been in a really long time, and we're at a score of about 74 on the bull bubble. You can see we haven't been this high on the bull bubble since the end of last year. Okay, again, this is on a daily time frame. I'm going to look at this on higher time frames because I care more about that, but it's still worth showing. Okay, we're hitting some pretty nice strength here. We might see things come down a little bit. Or go sideways for a little while as this bull bubble kind of matures. But this is nice to see, that we have a larger bull bubble than we've seen in a while. Stochastic oscillator is at some levels that we haven't seen in quite a while. And it can stay up here. Remember, once we're up in this hot zone, it can be a multiple month journey. We can stay up here, as you've seen, for like a month at a time. I mean, we likely will dip down for a little while. We could come right back up. But you could see that we've had multiple month journeys where we've kind of stayed in the hot zone. So that's just another thing to keep in mind as a possibility. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. We're just looking at, okay, we're quite in the hot zone right now with stochastic oscillator. Lastly, just going to some simple moving averages, you can see that Bitcoin is well above its Williams alligator indicator, which is in a clear parabolic uptrend, again on the daily time frame. Okay, I think it's time to zoom out to, let's go to the weekly, and then I want to look at the 2 week after that. And believe me, you want to look at higher time frames to get an idea of prevailing momentum. Daily is very difficult to make any kind of like projections on. Okay, I've got the fibs pulled up. Back in quarter 4 and quarter 1 of this year, we challenged the 1.272 fib unsuccessfully. Looks like we're heading back up in that direction again. And I do expect some of these levels to get tested. One of the levels that you can notice for now is our parabolic SAR that's been we're still technically on the weekly, at least, in a parabolic SAR downtrend. To turn this into an uptrend, we have to take out this price at around just under 100K, about 99K. Now, each week we stay below that, the SAR dot will come down, but that's just something to keep in mind. To break into a really sustained uptrend that lasts at least a little while on the weekly time frame, to have that chance, we need to get above 99K and challenge this 1.272 fib again. Now, ideally, the bullish case is that we clear this, right? And we just keep going. Let's take a look at where the Gaussian channel is at right now in the weighted logarithmic Bollinger Band. Okay, I'm going to turn the fibs off soon, but I want you to notice where Bitcoin bounced. It bounced at the upper boundary of its green Gaussian channel. The last time it bounced here was in September of last year, and here it is bouncing again. Seeing all these touch points on the Gaussian channel to me is actually not a sign of strength. Like, it's not a sign to me that some gigantic parabolic move is coming soon. Look at what happens during the parabolic moves. You don't keep touching and testing the Gaussian channel. You rocket off of it. Okay. This is just not something you see typically. Right now, could things be different because of diminished volatility, diminishing returns? They sure could, but I am just not convinced that this is the start of a parabolic move based off that information alone, seeing 1-2 touch points on the Gaussian channel. It is nice that these are holding for support. The shape of the Gaussian channel is also very erratic. You've seen some concave down, concave up, and this is typically not the case when you're in a parabolic state, usually just straight up. It is the case before you enter into one, though, that the Gaussian channel does get very messy. So I'm not seeing anything immediately that's screaming gigantic parabolic moving coming, but that's just based off of, the Gaussian channel on the weekly with the Bollinger Band. Let's look at a bunch of other stuff. Another thing to keep in mind right now is the Williams alligator indicator is actually kind of been turning down. The alligator is asleep. And so this is prevailing moving average momentum. That's just saying, Bitcoin has really been held down for a little while, very similar to what was happening in quarter 3 of 2024. And also similar to quarter 3 of 2023 as well. And when we see this very choppy behavior, this usually indicates some kind of accumulation range that's going on. We've seen this in 2019, right? Or late 2019 or early 2020. It's too soon to say what this is going to transpire to. Could we come right back out and go into another bull run? I mean, sure, we could. But this Williams alligator is giving me a little bit of pause that that's likely to happen, right? But it could happen. I mean, these are turned up, so they could go up. But my thought is there may be some chop to be had around here. And I'm still not convinced that we could take out the highs from earlier this year. Also taking a look at weekly volume. I mean, we've had a good week, but the volume isn't really what you would expect during a parabolic uptrend, right? It's just kind of business as usual with the volume. We're not seeing the kind of market participation that we would like to see during a really major bull run. So some other things that make me think that this uptrend may be kind of short-lived is the Snabble RSI is already approaching the hot zone, something it hasn't done since quarter 4 of last year. Ideally, we'd like to see this cool off a little bit and maybe chop around rather than just go straight up like it's been doing. But notice the ADX and DI is not remarkable at all. I mean, you've got a trend strength that's decreasing, not increasing, but decreasing around 22 or so. And you've got green just barely sneaking above the red. This doesn't look like the start of a giant parabolic move, to me, at least. Could it be? Anything can happen, folks. I'm just calling it like I see it. I mean, we typically have seen the ADX really bottom out before it's gone on to do some like really big runs, right? You see scores of ADX and DI usually between 10 and 20. Seems like we're heading down that way, which is a good thing. But it's really hard for me to think that there's a whole lot of steam to this bullish move. I think it can last for a few weeks, but ultimately, I think it's probably going to roll over again. The question is where, of course. We'll try to explore that as well. The wave trend oscillator put in a lower high in December of last year. And it looks like we just put in like a kind of a macro triple bottom. I mean, to me, it looks like a gigantic head and shoulders pattern within a head and shoulders pattern, right? Like here's the original head and shoulders from middle of 2024. This looks like another shoulder. It's kind of a weak case I'm making, to be honest with you. We are seeing an upturn here, but we're still not above zero, right? So I am skeptical. I'm very skeptical, and we have not hit the green zone since July of 2022 on the weekly time frame. I'm skeptical that we don't hit it this year. I think it's likely we do. I don't think we're going back up to the red zone. Not now. The last time we hit the green zone was in December of 2018. December of 2018, July of 2022. About 3.5 years, right? The time before that was February of 2015. So February 2015, December of 2018, just under 4 years. Okay, so we don't hit the green zone often. It's a rare occurrence, and it usually occurs at a bear market bottom. Like even in March of 2020, we didn't go that low. Okay, but here's the thing. Why do I think it's possible that we get down at least near the green zone and possibly even get to it? I think because of macroeconomic conditions. That's why. And I'm going to talk about it later. Like I am going to get into it. So please be patient with me and tune into this whole video so you can understand, all of my reasoning about why I am still, like, I would say I'm bullish in the short term for Bitcoin, but I'm still medium term bearish. And I might be one of the only people out there who feels this way, but it's really hard to shake that with the data that I'm seeing. Okay, this is a linear regression channel for Bitcoin that goes all the way back to May of 2022. So we're talking 3 years back. It's a very strong channel. It has a p-value of 0.94, or I think, indicating a very strong correlation. So the bottom of this channel was visited in November, December 2022 bottom. And then it put in a head and shoulders in Q1 and Q2 of 2023, came back down to test the bottom again in September, and then rocketed straight to the top in one of the fastest bull runs we've seen. March of 2024, put in the top, came down below in Q2, Q3 of last year, only to come back up and not quite make it to the top of the channel. And now we are testing the median line of the channel, which sits at around, there's that value, 99K. Okay, but we'll just call it 100K. So I think we need to really watch in that area, like where all this, like I think Bitcoin is destined to come back and test these levels. But is it going to get back above the top of the channel and head straight up to the, head straight up here, and put in like maybe a major cycle top at the end of this year? It could happen, right? I have trouble seeing the move we're in right now have a whole lot to it. It honestly feels like a little bit of a relief rally. That's what it feels like to me. I'm just not seeing the volume, the follow through to take us that high. Could we get over 100K? I think we could. In fact, I think it's likely that we will. But will we get sustainably higher than 100K and break out to like over 109K? I don't think it's likely. Now, one thing I will say that is really healthy looking is the 2-week time frame for Bitcoin in terms of just a Gaussian channel, which again is lagging data. That move from December of 2022 to April and December, see April here and then December here, caused the channel to inflect, turn green, tight, and concave up, which is a strong channel. Bitcoin has once again, at least so far, managed to hold the median line of the Bollinger Band. Okay. Is it about to take another parabolic journey to like 140,000 or something like that? Look, it could happen. It could happen. I personally don't think it will. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, it could, right? But it still doesn't really change my thesis. My thesis is that it won't take out the previous high. So, you have to have a thesis and you have to stick to it. Right or wrong, you stick to it. So my thesis is that we are not going to take out 109K, not in an impressive way. Okay. I feel like I'll give you some reasons soon. One of the indicators that has been really useful for me this year, and last year too, is the reverse Chande momentum oscillator. I'm trying to find it. I've talked about this a lot on my channel, so if you've been following me for any length of time, I've been tracking this since last year. I'm gonna say this again. I've said this several times. Look at how we got in March of 2024 almost to 100 on the RCMO. The last time we got even close to that high, got around that same level, was March of 2013, 11 years previous. And then we've also printed a head and shoulders pattern. Okay. The shoulder was in November of 2013, and that coincided with a major cycle top. And then we went all the way back down to the bottom. What happened in 2013 to 20, what does it say, 2013, with achieving a score of 100 and then coming back up and getting a 90. This is the only time this has ever happened without Bitcoin rolling over, right, and taking the trend down with it. Now, this is like a momentum indicator, so this does not correspond exactly with price. Has to do more with ROI, but you can kind of spot your downtrends and your uptrends. 2016, 2017 was very unusual. It was like this perfect parabola. Certainly not how things look today. And then you had the echo bubble of 2019. So, it's like we hit this level of about, it looks like 87 in 2017. So we went lower than we went in the previous bull run. Double bottomed at a higher place. And then we had this 2019 echo bubble to a level of around 70. Still, I'm talking 85 to 100, just did not make it that high. It took all the way until January of 2021 to get back to a level around 90, 89, we'll say. And then we went straight back down again, and then we went all the way to 100. So we've put the head and shoulders. You can see this head and shoulders patterns plays out in like a lot of different ways. We have a massive head and shoulders setup on the 2-week time frame. And if you look at the signal line for Bitcoin, for this metric, it doesn't look good, right? Like, look at the signal line in the past. Like, even in 2013, we didn't get much of a bounce, right? Here we are with our first crest in June of 2024. Kind of a pathetic bounce, right? And it looks like we're back testing the signal line right now. Now, we could flip the signal line green. I think it's unlikely that this shoulder invalidates. It could invalidate, and we could find ourselves right back up here at the end of the year in a blow off top scenario. If that happened, it would surprise me a little bit. I still believe, and I'm unlikely to flip bullish. Of course, the data could easily, change my mind if my thesis is wrong, but I still believe we're coming back down again below zero. How far below zero do we need to go? That I don't know. Do we need to go as low as we went in August of 2024? I don't know. I really don't. But I think we need to come down below zero. I'm very skeptical that this makes it back up to these higher levels right now on the back of this massive head and shoulders formation. And this is not the only metric that has me thinking this. I want to show you the average sentiment oscillator as well. This is a very pronounced bull bubble. But look at the bull bubble. It's already kind of crested and it's coming back in. this bull bubble has lasted for a really long time. And look at the history of bull bubbles. 2017 and 16 was pretty big, but we're kind of in line with previous bull bubbles. Like, honestly, like this bull bubble looks like it's getting ready to close. And I think there's a chance it does close this quarter. And a lot of people are going to get very disappointed when it does. I find it unlikely that this bubble is going to now keep going. I think we're going to need to have a bear market. I think we're in a bear market. And a lot of us just don't realize it. And look, if we go off to 150K or 200K in a few months, you can laugh at me and say how wrong I was. And I'll admit to it too. But I feel like the data is just telling me to remain medium-term bearish. Now, another thing too, I don't think I talked about this earlier, but this is the weekly time frame. We've gone back to the weekly, and these are the moving averages. Bitcoin is trying to get back above its 100 week. The 50 week is turned down. The 100 week is turned down. This just speaks resistance to me. It just tells me it's going to be hard to do. Sure, the 20 week might turn up, but I just feel like it's going to be hard for Bitcoin to get back above these moving averages in a sustained way. Could it happen? Sure. It just looks tough to me. It looks difficult right now. One of the things that I wanted to look at on this weekly time frame that I haven't really talked about yet. Okay, so this is the pi cycle top indicator. We haven't looked at this on video in a while. The last time that the pi cycle top indicator was triggered was in April of 2021, following the golden cross of these moving averages. And this is the, I think, 111 day moving averages with a 365 by 2, which I believe is the green one. So the green one is the is that 365 by 2? I think that's what it is, right? No, 350 by 2. So 350 by 2 right here. So we are definitely getting closer to having a golden cross, right? Like it looks closer than it's been in a while. 57K is where the 111 day moving averages, and the 365 by 2 looks like it's at 66K. So, I mean, these are converging, but they're certainly not doing so in a convincing way like they've done in the past. Like, I mean, if you look at like 2021, they were running kind of parallel for a while, and then the 111 actually dipped below before going back above, right? So the things just look a little bit different now than they did in the past. Okay, do I think we're about to see the pi cycle top trigger this quarter? I don't see that happening. Again, I think we're going to roll over. I do. My thesis has not changed despite this pump. I saw a pump like this coming, guys. I told you already, bounces will happen along the way in a bear market. And I still believe that is the most likely path forward. This feels good to have this kind of relief. It really does. But I don't know how much longer this is going to last. I mean, a few weeks probably, and then past May, I don't know. It's hard to see it. I've said the first half of the year I don't think is going to be that spectacular in a good way. Really big moves, I'm more forecasting in half two or even into 2026. So man, I could be like so far off on my thesis. I really could, but these are just my feelings for now. Current Bitcoin risk is at 53.75, right in the middle. We were briefly in the 60 to 80 risk band, right? And then we got rejected out of it, and we just back tested the top of the 20 to 40 risk band. And I think we're going to try to once again challenge the 40 to 60 risk band. And I think, again, my base case is we fail in doing so. So right now, 100 risk would be at 199K. We'll just call it $200,000. So let's just say Bitcoin does the unthinkable, does what I think it's not going to do, and we go parabolic right now towards the end of 2025. Blow off top, quarter four 2025. If we start hitting prices anywhere in this zone, like I would say around 200K, that's it. We cycles over. Rotation into Ethereum and altcoins, and we're done. We're cooked. We're going to have a nice big bear market in 2026. That's what I think would happen. I don't think that's likely, though. I think it's very unlikely to happen. that we achieve those risk levels. If anything, I think we're likely to test some of these lower risk levels. And so that depends on what the broader market has in store for us. I'll just tell you straight up, and I will take a look at the broader market in a second. But if we get a recession, right? If we get a recession, hard landing, and that were to happen this year, I think 40K is on the table. And you're like, wait, 40K? Well, look at what happened in March of 2020. March of 2020, we actually went below zero risk on a wick, and that was a brief recession. The conditions at the time were very similar, and look what happened even then. Like this is like late 2019. We had what looked like, we were recovering in October, only to pump to a lower high, right? And then just do it again, do it two more times, or do it one more time before actually rolling over. I think we're having something similar play out right now. I really do. I think this late 2019, early 2020 time period, it feels like it's playing out in or rhyming on a longer time frame. Like this was a pretty short bear market. I think the bear market we're in is going to be looked back at as being long, like longer than usual. If we get a soft landing, I still think Bitcoin will revisit the 30 to 40 risk range. And so I think we'll look back at the entirety of the move. Let me take off the risk metric now. I don't need it anymore. But I have a feeling like we're going to look back on the entirety of this move from like, January of 2023 all the way to kind of like December of 2024, January 2025 as being the risk off portion of the Bitcoin bull market, the quantitative tightening portion. And I can go ahead and add the federal funds rate, right? Okay, I meant to add it on its own, what do you call it? Its own price scale. Okay, so here's the federal funds rate. We'll go ahead and make it white. Okay, and let's get Bitcoin data in there. So you can see the rate cuts, they started to happen. Bitcoin enjoyed the first cut. Back in 2019, Bitcoin just kind of went sideways into the first cut. But as the cuts progressed, Bitcoin just kind of didn't like it. And, Bitcoin found its bottom around the rate cut floors. That's where Bitcoin's price bottom was. We had our first rate cut, and Bitcoin liked it. But I think we're going to get another one in June. And I don't have such a great feeling that that's going to be a great good thing for Bitcoin, right? Like I think Bitcoin might go the other direction. So it could roll over before then even. So, I think this rate cut cycle has to play itself out. I think a recession is a possibility. I don't want to try to tell you it's definite because I don't know. Nobody does. But this is something to certainly watch out for. Here's Bitcoin on the weekly overlaid with inflation. So inflation has been going way down, right? If you use Trueflation like I do to track inflation, you'd see that the real rate is probably in the ones, but we're at 2.4%. We know the Fed's terminal rate is supposed to be around 2%. And I think there's a good chance that they get close to achieving that. You can see back in January of 2020, inflation was actually going up and Bitcoin price along up with it. And then when inflation went down, Bitcoin was actually crashing along with inflation going down. And then you know what happened next. I don't think we're going to see this happen this time, right? This was extreme money printing, the kind we haven't seen in ages. But we have this again, right? We have inflation going down and we have Bitcoin going up. It's kind of hard to say exactly where this will end, but I know the Fed really wants to get us down to 2%, and they've been holding rates higher for longer. And if we look at the projection for May, the May FOMC, lately market participants have been pricing in a freeze, not a cut. Okay, so the website I usually use to look at the Fed funds rate is not down, but the part that shows the Fed funds rate probabilities is down. So I'm using a different website. But yeah, right now market participants are pricing in a 91% probability of a rate cut freeze, right? Or just a pause. We'll call it what it is in May FOMC. But look at June. This is where things start to take shape. You get a cut, 56% chance of a cut. People are even pricing in 50 basis points. So 25 basis points seems sort of baked in. That's a pretty large probability. July, there's some uncertainty, right? There's some uncertainty. but everything's kind of pointing in the direction of cuts in the second half of this year, starting at the end of Q2. So the quarter that we're in. So I think there's a fairly good chance that we see those cuts in June. I don't think we're going to see them in May. Let me be clear about that. I don't think so. I think that's too soon. And so I don't know how the market's going to react to that, but I'm just not getting too excited about this pump. Even if it did put in a slightly higher high, I think that's all it would end up being, is a slightly higher high. I still think it would roll over. And look, we'd love to see that. A slightly higher high would be great, but I'm not so sure we see much more than that. Another thing that is very similar to 2019 is the behavior of Bitcoin dominance right now. It's another thing that kind of has me on pause. I mean, you want to talk about a bull market and something that's in a proper bull market. Let's talk about Bitcoin dominance. Look how overextended it is from its weekly Gaussian channel. And it's been pretty much riding the top part of his Bollinger Band, challenging levels much higher than I thought were possible. So I was wrong about Bitcoin dominance. I was dead wrong. I thought it was breaking down when it pulled this move here, and I thought we were just going to dead cat our way down a little ways. That's not what happened. Instead, we got a really huge surge and actually ended up putting in, we actually challenged the 786 fib, and now we're challenging it again. I think this 786 fib is likely to break to the upside. And in the unthinkable, we could even be challenging the 886. I mean, this is absolutely unthinkable. Crazy. I never thought this would happen. I don't think we will get that high. I have a hard time seeing us get too far above the 786, but then there was a time where I thought we wouldn't even make it, even to the 786 fib. So Bitcoin dominance is on a tear. And if you look at what was happening in late 2019 to early 2020 during a rate cut cycle, look at Bitcoin dominance. Look what it was doing. It was going absolutely parabolic, and it got all the way up to 73% in September of 2019. Then it started to come down, okay? It did start to come down. It's possible that Bitcoin dominance is topped. Look, I'm not going to say that it's impossible that it's topped. It's possible it's topped. I'm just not convinced that it has. And the reason why I'm not convinced has to do with the fact that markets have yet to price in any type of quantitative easing. Bitcoin dominance is still riding its 20-week HMA, beautifully riding it. Okay, there's no signs of weakness right now, other than getting rejected off the 786. But let's look at the Heiken Ashies. I'll bet you they look a little bit more exciting. Yeah, I mean, these are beautiful Heiken Ashies. You can't ask for more. This is a clear uptrend. So I'm not convinced that Bitcoin dominance is done yet. I thought for sure that sometime in the first half of the year, and I was even saying the first quarter of the year originally on my channel, that Bitcoin dominance would start to roll over. But the one thing I wasn't really thinking was that we were going to have quantitative tightening for as long as we have. As long as the market is tight and we don't have a lot of new liquidity flowing in, I don't really see a path forward for Bitcoin dominance other than up. I don't think Bitcoin dominance is going to stay up beyond Q2. Let me be clear about that. I do not think Bitcoin dominance will continue to remain strong beyond Q2. But I think as long as we are heading into rate cuts, we're on our way there. I think Bitcoin dominance can see some kind of final topping process, probably above the 786 fib. As much as we don't want to see it go there, I think it can go there. Gold's having a little bit of a pullback right now, but I mean, it still looks strong. Look at it's still above his 20-week HMA. There's no reason to get bearish on gold. Look how far above its gold Gaussian channel it is. Okay, so the market is very much risk off, right? And if you look at the stock market, which I promised you I would do, I mean, it just looks like it's about to do its little staircasing thing where it staircases its way down. Yes, it's above an impressive candle this week, above the 20-week HMA. But look at all the resistance above. Everything's turning down. It's below its 200-week HMA. I think the stock market's in the bear market, and I don't see a way forward for Bitcoin. I don't think Bitcoin is going to outperform the stock market for long. Now, there are periods where it can do so. If we go back to Bitcoin and we look at correlation and look at the R values, let's go ahead and set up a correlation study, okay, with stock market. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong Bitcoin. I do this sometimes, folks. Not that it matters. I mean, it doesn't, right? I meant to use this one. But yeah, let's go ahead and pull up that correlation study. So on the SPX. Let's go ahead and compare. We are at a time right now where there actually is still a pretty good correlation with the stock market, right? But we may head down for a little while. Okay. So yeah, I mean, there is a chance that Bitcoin could outperform the stock market at times, but I just have a hard time understanding how Bitcoin can do really well in this kind of environment. Unless the correction's over for the stock market and it's bottomed. We won't really know that right away, but I have a hard time believing that with everything that's going on in the world. I mean, this is a really nice spike of buy volume that happened a few weeks ago. This is not quite as strong, but I think the stock market is more likely to roll over than not. Get a relief bounce. It could bounce as high as maybe even here, 5,800, could even challenge the 6,000 level. I don't know where this is going to go from here, but it already breached this Gaussian channel. It hasn't even gotten above the median line of it. So this doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And I don't think Bitcoin is going to suddenly become the new gold. I think the strength that Bitcoin is showing is very temporary, and it's going to break a lot of people's hearts and wallets, but that's just how this goes. I'm not calling it how I want to see it. I'm calling it how I see it. It's really hard to be that optimistic about the market in the medium term. I certainly can be in the short term, but not in the medium term. So my overall assessment of the crypto market right now is enjoy this relief rally until it's proven not to be one. All the probabilities are in favor of us still enduring some kind of bear market. And that could take place in May. It could take place in June. It could spill over into half two of the year. I don't really know, but I'm still thinking one is likely. I think the stock market is going to roll over into some kind of hard landing. But I think the good news in that is I think a lot of this will probably play out as you would expect it to, which is that the Bitcoin should find its bottom long before the stock market does. And so I don't think, let's say the stock market didn't bottom until the end of the year. I think Bitcoin could bottom, a month or two before it bottoms. If the stock market bottomed in like 2026, I think Bitcoin could bottom again sometime before that. So, I think the only thing that might be over at that point is what I would sort of referred to as the risk off bull market. I think we've only seen one half of the bull market at that point. I really think the bull market ended in December, January for crypto. But I think that, yes, there's bounces along the way. There were bounces along the way from 2019 to 2020. It didn't mean a thing, right? Still rolled over into a recession. I think the same thing is happening now. It's just taking longer. So we'll see if this theory is proven right. Obviously, it would benefit me and you for it not to be proven right. But as I've said before, I have to have a base case. No matter how ridiculous it sounds right now, I'm going to hold to it. I think we're in a 2019 to 2020 risk off transitionary bear market. And I think that when we emerge from this transitionary bear market near a rate cut floor, right, very end of this year, maybe into early next year, I think then we can see the real huge parabolic moves that we've been waiting for. But I think a lot of the risk indicators on higher timeframes need to fully reset for that to happen and for that kind of move to really build itself out. But that's where I think you'll see the risk on bull market come back. I think we haven't seen it this cycle because of how slow the transition from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing is likely to be. If you want to kind of get an idea of what to expect, you can always study the Russell 2000 and go back to previous time periods where there was a slower transition from QT to QE, and you could probably learn from that. So if you enjoyed the content on my channel, I'd encourage you to go ahead and give this video a like, comment your thoughts below, and also be sure to join my Telegram channel, Crypto Simulation Theory Telegram. It's completely free. There's a link in the video description. I also have a Twitter account and a bunch of other stuff which you can check down in the video description. I'd love you to, like I said, subscribe to my channel as well. New subscribers are always welcome, and you can pour into my Telegram and tell me your thoughts on the market and what you think of this video. Remember, though, that price predictions and stuff like that, even trend predictions, are ultimately just that. And at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own risk management and investment decisions. Nothing in this video is to be considered financial advice. Thank you, and I will see you again in the next video.